Maybe turn the light on.
Yeah.
Okay, we're recording now. This is June 12th, 2002. This is Thelma Mueller and Andy Mueller, and we're going to interview them about their life history. Okay, I don't know. I guess, Grandma, why don't you go ahead and start and tell us when you were born, where you were born, and
your English name.
And your born name. I was born August the 8th, 1910 in Jay County, Indiana. And what else do you want?
What is your English name?
My English name, I don't know what my English name is.
What was your name when you were born? Thelma?
Thelma Neoma Star.
What's your Mongolian name?
No, don't have one of them.
I got mine.
Steve, go wire. Go wire. Okay, tell us about the house you were born in, and did you have a car? Did you...
I was born in the same house that my dad was born in. And I had two brothers.
Work with all this background. Go ahead.
And, of course, back then, you know, we didn't have anything modern. So when Saturday, you want me to start with them? Saturday come, we got our daily bath, all in the same tub.
Outside.
Outside. In the summertime. And
what did you use for soap? You couldn't go to the store and buy soap.
Well, the way they used to make soap, they took lye and lard and made soap out of it. I've seen my mother do it, but I don't know whether there was anything else put in it or not, but that's all I can remember about that.
What did you use for towels then? You had to make your own towels?
Well, sacks. Them sacks, like they used to wrap, feed come in it, yeah.
Like flour sacks.
Yeah. So that's probably what they used. I don't remember about that part of it, but...
and they washed you in what? What did you use for a bathtub?
It was a big, round... you get me excited here.
Ooh, still after all these years.
It's a big, round tub that they used, and they also used that for other things, too. I don't know what else. But then it was a big round tub, maybe 2 foot deep it would be.
What'd you do in the winter then?
Well, it would have been done in the house by the big, what we had was a coal stove, and that would be in the living room. The old house had a front room, a front porch, but you never used that. That was the bedrooms back of that front porch. The living room was to the side of the house, and the kitchen.
That's where you put the tub in there when you took a bath
in the winter time when it was cold, yeah.
And this lye soap that you used, you were talking the other day about how it made your skin soft. And
oh yeah, it's real. Your skin is just as soft as silk with that lye. I think there's some people yet today, Amish people probably still make it. I don't, you know. And then, of course, on Saturdays we always went to town on Saturday night, and we're not allowed to get out by ourselves. We had to stay with our parents, but that was a Saturday night deal. And my dad, once in a while, would take us to the drugstore where they had the little table and chairs and buy us ice cream, and that was a treat then. On the farm, my first, no, maybe I'll tell this, my mother seen us do it, but me and my two brothers thought we was going to play a trick on my mother, so there was a long trough with a lid on it. And we got in it and closed it up. But our mother seen us do it, so she crept up real quiet, and I can remember this as it was yesterday, sat on the lid. And then when we tried to get out, we couldn't get out. Oh. My mother, I remember her saying to us that, you know, just letting us, she could hear us inside. How was we going to get out? Yeah.
Oh. What were your toys when you were growing up with? What did you play with?
You know, the only toys I can remember, we had a neighbor, and she had a box of toys. I don't remember, only sleds that we had. But this neighbor lady had a box full of toys, no children, and I have no idea where she got them. But we would go over there, and she was like a second mother to us. We called them aunt and uncle.
Yeah.
And it was George and Evie Whitaker was their name. And but later in years, they did have children, but not till I was pretty well growing.
Did you play games?
Yeah, we played really what we did mostly in the summertime, we had a creek that ran through the farm, and all the neighbor kids always come to our house to play. And we had a swimming pool in the summertime. It was, not a swimming pool, in the creek, a swimming hole, where we all went swimming, the same place where we went ice skating in the wintertime. And then our sleds, we had a high hill that went down to that creek. And we used to ride our sleds down the hill. And then I can just barely remember when we got the first car. I suppose I could have been maybe 5 years old, but I'm not sure about my age. But I can, because Jay was a baby, and I was 15 months older than Bud. But I can remember when they delivered that car. But I can't remember too much about after we delivered it, because I figured when I started to school at 6 years old and had 2.5 miles to walk to that school. But there was other children in the neighborhood too. But maybe later on my dad may have taken us sometimes. But it's funny that I can just barely remember that car when it was delivered to us.
So when you went into town with the car, when you first got your car, were you one of the first ones in the town to have a car?
We were the only ones. There was no other cars.
So everybody gathered around to see your new car?
Yeah, I guess they would have, because we were the only ones with a car. We got the first bicycle when we still lived in the old house, because the, what was that thing the horses was tied to? The
hitching post.
Hitching post. Well, my dad took a 5-gallon can of cream to town to buy a bicycle. We had a long lane to go down to get to the main road, and when he turned, the cream can fell over and spilled part of the cream. Well, I don't know what he did, but he went on to town, and we still got our bicycle. And all the kids in the neighborhood learned to ride that bicycle.
One bicycle for all of you.
One bicycle for all of us. The same way when they built the new home, they had told us ahead of time that our Christmas present would be a sled or we'd get one thing, and that's what it was. It was a sled.
For all of you?
For all of us.
So Christmas time, that was it. Did you get stockings?
Well, we had stockings, but they would be filled with what you had, apples or popcorn. The tree would be decorated with popcorn. You know, a lot of
String
people,
popcorn.
yeah, string of popcorn on the tree. You didn't have any kind of fancy
No lights?
things. No lights, of
What
course,
did
no
you-
nothing.
How did you get your tree? We used fake
Well,
ones, so.
in the front yard of the old house where I was born, there was 6 big cedar trees. So my father, and I can remember him telling us, we was old, and I was old enough to remember the first one that was cut off. Every Christmas, for 6 Christmases, our tree was from the top of those 6 big pine trees.
So they just kept topping them.
Until then. Then after that, I don't know, I suppose we just had a regular
Went out in the
pine tree
woods.
after that.
Was it a big ordeal decorating your tree? Did
Oh
everybody
yeah,
do it? Or?
everybody did it. Everybody did it. In the, you know, you can't imagine what it would be like in a house like that. Your living room was in the middle, and the bedroom's to the one side. And the living room was where you spent most of your time. And in the evenings, we, had no electric lights. We had, just a lamp that was run by coal or gas or coal, kerosene. And that was the only light you had at all.
So there's no TV, there's no radio. Was there a radio yet?
No,
What'd you do
no.
in the evening?
Well,
Go to bed?
I suppose we would play games, and I can't remember what kind of games we would play. I don't remember that either.
What about like the old record players? Did you have one of those that you wound up?
No, we didn't have one of those either.
Did you dance back then? Did you have dances?
No, not when I was a little girl. You wouldn't have nothing like that. The main thing was, you went to church every Sunday. And the horse and buggy. I didn't tell you about the horse and buggies. Before we got the car, and we used that horse and buggy after we had the car, because I can remember different times when that was used. But with the horse and buggy, when you had the fair, you've all been, where the
Jay
fairground
County
is.
Fair.
Okay, we had a carriage, a 2-seated carriage. And my mother would fill the basket full of food, and We went to the fair and spent the whole day. My dad was a stockholder in the fairgrounds, so it never cost us anything to go to the fair, but we would go. Tuesday was Children's Day and Thursday was Adults' Day, but everybody went, but that was the main day. So when I was born on a Thursday, and my dad told me it was the only Thursday of the fair that he ever missed, was when I was born.
What was your dad's name?
Forrest Clyde Starr. Forrest Clyde
Did he
Starr.
have brothers and sisters?
He had Uncle Herbert and Aunt Iris and Aunt Edith. 2 sisters, there was 2 girls and 2 boys. Then he had 4 step sisters and brothers.
Did they grow up on a farm also?
Yes, they would have grown up on, let's see, well, sure, when my father's dad lived in that old house
Oh,
with
your
his first
house.
wife too, and had 4 children from, it was 4, maybe 4 or 5 children from the first wife, and she died from childbirth. She was pregnant and jumped off of a wagon, and then she died. Then Grandpa Starr then married my dad's mother, which was 20 years younger than what he was, and had my dad and Uncle Herbert and 2 sisters, Aunt Iris and Aunt Edith.
What was your grandpa's name then?
John Starr. You know, I can't remember.
John?
I should have.
What did he do for a living?
Oh, he's a farmer.
Farmer too?
The Starr family owned most of all the land around there at one time, at that whole square. But like things happened, one boy caused a lot of trouble. So my dad, where I was born on the farm, was 180 acres. Then later on, my dad bought another farm, 160 acres, and then a 25-acre plot with a house on it. And that was the acreage that then. But we was us kids was all brought up on the home farm.
That your grandparents
That-
were at?
The one that my dad's, that
Was born in.
my grandfather
John.
and grandmother, John.
And her name was Grandma?
Grandma Starr's name was, oh my goodness.
I haven't thought about that one for a
Haven't
while.
thought about that, and I've got that all down at home too. Let's see, and Grandma Starr. Ethel. No, Mom's name is, my goodness.
It was just Grandma.
It was Grandma Starr. And,
Do you remember her as a child? Was
oh
she around
yes.
much?
Your mother has those little china dishes, there's 2 or 3 of them, that my Grandma Starr gave to me at Christmas time, and it was still in the old house then. And I can remember that Christmas so well, because she brought it out in a big box, and we just thought we was getting a lot of things. And we did get a lot of things, but I got that in particular, and I had the little, about this big, you've seen it on your mother's dresser, and then the other one has a little stand, and that would be for your jewelry. And I have always kept that, and then
She
I give
gave
it to
you
your
that.
mother.
How old were you? A teenager then?
Oh,
or a girl, or-
no, I wasn't a teenager till after we moved in the new house. See, I was 10 years old when we moved in the new house. No, I probably was, I wouldn't know, maybe
If you lived in
4 or
the
5
old
years old.
farmhouse, where did your grandparents live then?
in town.
So they moved
They
to
moved
town.
into Portland, Indiana. They bought a house there and moved into Portland. And that was when my dad took over the farm. The reason my father took over the farm, his father, Grandpa Starr, didn't know how to manage things. In them days, it was a lot different. And he got in debt, and so my dad, the only way that they could keep the farm was if my dad took it over. And that's how my
And
dad...
how did he turn things around? What did he do?
Oh, my
Remember?
father, he knew how to farm. He knew how... when I was little, he used to buy carloads of young cattle, little calves. Feed them, because you raise corn and oats and wheat on your farm. And you alternated every year. You wouldn't plant the same thing in the fields. You kept alternating them. But they don't do that now like they should.
Because why did they alternate?
Because the ground is more fertile, and it's the...
Taking nutrients out of the ground and stuff, different.
And if you alternate them, then it helps to keep in the ground. But of course, then you had cattle and pigs, and that's how you fertilized your ground. You didn't use had no chemicals at all.
So you guys ate pretty good, right?
Oh yeah,
You had
oh yes. Oh,
beef
yeah.
and
beef
pork and
every
not
year.
you.
Yeah.
We'll get to you.
every year we had a butchered, and they would how they do, the cattle would be tied up so that you shot them. That's how they kill the cattle. And then when they were and all the neighbors in the farm, on the farms around, most of them, right close, all come in and helped everybody. You know, you didn't do it for yourself. The neighbors all helped. And then the men would do the butchering and get them ready. And then the women would, the sausage, it had to be ground up. And then it was, they took the, now I suppose they still do that, the intestine, scrape them, wash them, and clean them good. And that's what the sausage, you had a thing that would fill that with the sausage. And the hams and your bacon would be wrapped in these white sacks that they would get from feed. That's where they'd get them. And the hams especially, I remember my dad had a long needle that you injected St. Peter, it's like a salt, into the ham. And then you used, and I don't know the mixture, there was a mixture of salt and other stuff that he rubbed all over that ham, and all of them, and then wrapped them tight. And then they would be hung up and drip. Then when you would open them up to eat months later, they would all be molded on the outside, but you always trimmed off with those. You'll never know what good ham tasted like.
So you cut all that mold off and then you...
Well, not until you sliced it. You'd slice it off, but you'd have to cut the mold off. Then, but you know, we didn't have refrigerators then, so after it got hot enough, the meat had to be cured, but then it had to be canned.
Oh.
You know, you had to can it because you couldn't.
Keep it
you didn't
longer.
have a refrigerator to keep it in then.
So would they butcher the cows like in the fall? So you had all winter to keep them fresh and then can them in the summer?
By spring then, what was left, you'd can, but you had meat all year long. Those hams would stay forever
Did you
without...
have a cooling box?
What?
Yeah.
Oh, the cooling, the well. We had a well, and it was a pit. They called it a well pit. That's what they called it. And that's where you kept your milk and your cream.
Because it was cooler
It was
underground
cooler
there.
underground. That would probably be, what am I, 5 foot? It was 6 or 7 foot deep, but you had a way to get down into it, of
Yeah, at
course.
that time they had ice boxes too.
Well, we didn't have an ice box. I don't even remember when we ever got an ice box. I don't.
Too
I
far
know-
from the city probably to haul the ice out to you, huh?
Well,
Probably in the city they probably had
I
ice
had
boxes.
to get it out. Yeah, they had ice boxes, but I can't remember, because you see, when I was 10 years old and we moved in the new house, then we had electricity, because it was not from anybody, big
Batteries.
Uh,
You call them.
Like a generator or?
generator, and they had those big blocks that had water in them, had to be redone over I think it was once a month.
batteries.
They're like, yeah, batteries.
So did the lights, did they dim if you had a lot of lights on since they were coming
Well,
from
you
a
know,
generator? Or?
it's like everything else, you only could use so much.
So
light.
much.
Yeah, just so much of it.
Unless you
And we had a bathroom, too, but then, of course, then you had to have your own septic tank, and you all know about that, what that's like. But we did have a modern home.
So you had a bathroom that had running water into it. Did you have hot water?
Oh, yeah, we had hot
Oh.
water, but, well, now, you got me.
You didn't have
I don't think so. I think the hot
Probably had
water
to heat
still
the
had
hot
to be
water.
heated on the stove.
What'd you do in the winter when the ground was all frozen? What did you take water out and keep it in the house?
Oh, no,
or-
you had a well, and
And
it
it
didn't
didn't freeze way
No.
down there?
It might freeze, but then they always had to thaw it out. I can remember a few times when our well froze, but, you know, but it would depend on what kind of a winter you might have had. But,
And of course, now when your lane that you had to drive down and got full of snow,
well, you had,
just by hand you had to shovel it or use the tractors?
No,
or?
we probably had, no, you didn't have no tractors then. Had horses, and the plows and all the farming equipment was drawn by the horses for a long
So you
time
would-
until you could get other kind of
If it got too deep, then you didn't.
You just stayed
You
home.
just stayed home, that's right, you did, you didn't go then, like you did now. You
Yeah.
went to town on Saturday night and that was about it. In the wintertime, maybe you didn't even do that.
Yeah.
What was Christmas tradition? What, would you do something special Christmas Eve? We do candlelight service at
No,
church. What do
at
you?
Christmas, it was Christmas Day. We either went in, most time it was on the farm. Grandma and Grandpa Starr would come out, but I can't remember whether, each family had their own Christmas together. Because I know Grandpa and Grandma Starr and my mother and dad and brothers, that would be our Christmas together. Now maybe later in that, why we would get, when later on in years, this was while I was, before the new house was born, my mother's father and mother had a big house and it was about 10 miles from where we lived. And every Sunday, all of the brothers and sisters would meet at Grandpa Bird's house. Now that was on my mother's side of the house. And he